is the parents. It's the parents. He said, ask yourself, do I have a biblical worldview? How do I live first before I criticize young people? Now, how do we actually build a biblical worldview? Because of time, I'm just going to give you 3 principles to keep in mind that I think may help you out. 3 principles of how to do this, whether it's with your kids, whether with your grandkids, whether it's with your community and your church. How do we actually build a biblical worldview? You know where it begins? It begins, principle number 1, we must begin by being utterly convinced, says Nancy Pearcey, that there's a biblical perspective on everything, not just spiritual matters. There's a biblical perspective on everything. As my dad used to say to me, and he still does, you say, son, if something is biblical, it's true. If something is true, it's biblical. If something is biblical and we really understand it, it's true in the real world. If something is true and we properly understand it and the Bible addresses it, it will be biblical. There's a biblical perspective on everything. We have to refuse to compartmentalize our thinking and our actions from the way we actually live. This is why Paul says in Colossians 2:3 that in Christ are all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. All the treasures are of wisdom and knowledge are found in Christ. So let me give you a couple examples of how this might work out. Think about the issue of health. We live in a culture that says, what is a human being? A human being is purely a physical thing, right? You are just a body. Now, if something physical breaks down, how do you fix it? What type of solution is required? A physical